Welcome into 305 Guys on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on 5 Reasons Sports. I got Alex Donno. You can follow him at Alex Donno. We're going to talk some football today, sponsored here by Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Put down your $5, and you get $50 in lineups to play right away. So check it out on the Explore page. That's where they're putting it now. But put down your $5, get $50 to play right away on the Explore page. And again, those are lineups that you have no risk, which is pretty damn good. Check it out. It's, again, NFL season. Lots of free plays on there or squares you can check out for the Thursday night game coming up, also Sunday night. And, of course, the Dolphins playing the Patriots on Sunday. If you're outside the state of Florida, you can even play this Miami, South Florida thing. Just can't play it in the state of Florida. We got silly rules down here, but that is what it is. So check it out. It's Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. All right, Donno, so we're in your element now. And I don't know necessarily that 2 years ago we would have said that these two programs would be in such different positions this weekend. Because when we talk about what's at stake for each, like in one case, we're talking about like continuing a good run here, not being upset by an upstart that just upset one of your rivals, staying on track for where you want to be this season when you have very high aspirations. For the other, it's survival. I mean, that's really where we're at. And so, I mean, I think when we say who has more at stake, I think the obvious answer is the Dolphins, simply because this is disaster if they lose this one. I thought they had to win the first one. Instead, they look like the worst team in football. And then if they lose this one, then they're certainly losing on Thursday night, and they're 0-3 after that. And then we may be looking at, with a 10-day break, we may be looking at significant changes. Do you still agree with that premise that there's more at stake for them, even though I know you're wearing the hat and the shirt for the other team right now?
I don't know, because here's the thing. A lot of Dolphin fans, maybe not the majority, are getting to the point where they are looking forward to the changes that you just described happening. And it's like, and I know people have done this before, suck for luck, which didn't work out, tank for Tua, which didn't actually work until it did when he fell to number 5.
Right.
So sometimes people do root for their team to lose, not necessarily saying Dolphin fans are doing that on Sunday, but at least, Ethan, for the Dolphins, if they lose this weekend, you're getting closer to the silver lining. If Miami, if the Hurricanes lose to USF, there's no silver lining. And I'm not expecting the Hurricanes to lose to USF, by the way. Miami just needs to not be nearly as stupid as Florida was last week. Right. I also think Miami's got a better team than Florida, but I mean, Florida had every opportunity to put that game away. They had penalties wiping multiple touchdowns off the board. You spit on another player and get a penalty that leads to USF's game-winning drive. And, DJ Lagway didn't have a good game. Billy Napier, who calls the offensive plays, didn't call a good game. So, strange things have happened. Obviously, I've been watching the Hurricanes and the Dolphins long enough to know that these games don't always go the way you expect. But I would be surprised if the Hurricanes lose to USF. But if they did lose to USF, Ethan, then, people start to question Cristobal again and the decisions and the direction of the program. I mean, from where I sit, the Hurricanes have obviously done an incredible job recruiting. If you see how good their trenches have been, which I wish we had more of that, for the Miami Dolphins when it comes to the offensive and defensive lines. But I actually, for that reason, I feel like the Hurricanes have more at stake, but it's not like a huge difference because, this is like, I mean, every game from here on out for the Dolphins, especially ones that look winnable. I mean, you're at home against New England and you're favored by 1.5 at home. And it's not like, New England or the Jets open up their season well. Like the Dolphins are technically tied for second place in the AFC East right now for what that's worth. So I'm not saying there's not a lot at stake, but I feel like at least if the Dolphins were to lose this weekend or the weekend after that, then Finn fans start to talk us into, all right, now we're getting closer to a new regime, right? Yeah. And maybe that could be a good thing because the unknown is exciting. Whereas I don't think there's any silver lining for the Hurricanes if they lose.
Yeah, you get a little more clarity, although I don't know that it's going to move Ross to do anything. That's the other issue. And then it sort of gets to more frustration after that. I can't think of a player who is been more in the spotlight recently than Tua is this particular weekend.
Oh, yeah.
He has, for all the struggles, and I know Cap for Life put up some of the stats that Levitor mentioned today and all that. For all the struggles, it's been rare where he's really been awful 2 straight games. And, you look at the one game, what was it, against Green Bay when he had the concussions a couple of years ago. It was hard to really blame him for that. But if he has 2 straight games like that, then yeah, I mean, it is Armageddon for him. And and for the rest of this team, like you said, they could it's one game. You've played 6% of the season, essentially. The Bills, if the Bills hadn't pulled off that miracle comeback the other night, then every team in the AFC East would be 0-1 right now.
Yeah.
But they did, and we know that they're the class of the division, and we know that the Dolphins are not going to catch them, and we know that this is about the Dolphins positioning themselves at best for a wild card, and that means you're not, at best you're looking at going on the road in the first round, and we know how that goes. And so this is basically, we had 2 decades of essentially chasing the Patriots, and now you've had the last decade of chasing the Bills, and you're nowhere closer. In fact, it seems like you're further away, even with all the defections that the Bills have had over the years. I mean, you've even picked up a couple of their players in recent years. That hasn't even helped. Yeah. So look, I think that I will still go with there being more on the line for the Dolphins, only because since we are in week 2, there is still season left. I covered a 2008 team that started 1-3, and then the Wildcat was unleashed, and they ended up 11-5. I mean, crazy things happen. Do I think that will happen with this particular team? No. Mostly because I don't trust the quarterback anymore. And that was my whole thesis was, all right, as long as you keep him healthy, they've been a productive offense for the most part, even with teams figuring them out and pushing them in between the hashes in the last couple of years. And when he's been out, they've been awful, but he did play every game 2 years ago. And if you could get the same thing this year, then you've got a chance to at least be competitive. Now that I don't have faith in him, I don't have faith in the entire program. And it looks like the players have quit on the coach to a certain degree. I've seen that before. I covered enough Dolphins teams to know when guys are not putting it all out there. And that looked, I mean, the disorganization and just like the resignation with the disorganization in that game. Like they just in week one, like you come out of the gate, like you've had all of training camp. It's just kind of like, it's like, kid takes a test after the whole summer, right? And it's like the first test, they fail it. And like, well, what were we doing? We're on too many roller coasters. Like that's kind of what it felt like. And because, Alex, it plays into this narrative, as you talked about in the last episode, of him running a country club, that's where this becomes even more problematic, because now everybody's trying to say, well, see, like they need a hard ass in there. And that's what they're going to get, because
they're going to find the hardest ass out there for the next coach, because we know you and you're the one who made that great point weeks ago that anytime the Dolphins hire a new coach, they go complete opposite of what they have.
Right, exactly. That and it still doesn't work. Like they've tried all of it, and that still doesn't work. Let's get to the Canes game, though. You mentioned it as well, and I mean, this doesn't have this doesn't have some of the implications of prior games, but again, we saw them lay an egg against Syracuse, at the worst possible time last year. What makes you think that this team is different in that regard, that they won't take somebody lightly, that they're not getting full of themselves early in the season? Because we have seen that in prior years, and they haven't been all that they believed they were cracked up to be.
Yeah. Well, first thing, there's no excuse not to be completely motivated for USF after seeing what they just did. I mean, if there was, and I'm not saying that they would have taken this game lightly if USF hadn't beaten Florida, but after USF beat Florida, like, you have every reason to understand that if we keep these guys in the game, they can beat us. If we, make the sort of mistakes that Florida made, this team is capable of going on the road and winning a tough game. So there's that. I think some of it, Ethan, it's not just the attitude. I also think the personnel is going to have a lot to do with it, because the thing, and listen, you mentioned that Syracuse game, which was, one of the more embarrassing things I've seen, with the pressure in that game at the end of last regular season was, hey, like, you win this game and you punch your ticket to the ACC championship game, and you probably have punched your ticket to the college football playoff. And they blew a 21-0 lead to go on to lose that game. But a big difference is As we saw throughout the season last year, there was a lot of reason not to believe in Miami's defense, that they could not hold a lead like that, and that the offense essentially had to be perfect to cover up for the defense. I think their defense is a lot better. I think the team is more balanced. I noticed USF. They did a decent job kind of taking the deep ball away from Florida. And DJ Lagway doesn't really have another gear. Like, he does not like a check down guy. He's a home run hitter. Carson Beck, he'll take the check downs if they're there. And then, going back to the attitude, there's never a guarantee, because listen, I've seen the Hurricanes have mental lapses plenty of times over the years. I go back to, long before these days, thankfully, but I remember the Al Golden days and the Manny Diaz days and all that stuff. So I've seen this happen time and time again. But there is a self-awareness among this group of players that, like, I'd like to think that they learned from the way the season ended last year, and they kind of remind themselves to keep that intensity, nonstop with everything you do in practice and your film study and your preparation. I mean, they seem to have the sort of attention to detail that people accuse Mike McDaniel's country club for the Dolphins not having. So, I see got my guy Cap for Life says USF looks good. There's no doubt about that USF looks good. But also remember, if Florida hadn't committed over 100 yards in penalties, right, and if they hadn't, completely self-destructed every time they got to the red zone, and if they hadn't lost the turnover margin, then, like, Florida should have won that game. There's a reason why they're raising money to fire Billy Napier again. Like, it's,
right.
Because he did a terrible job in that game. So, and listen, I'm not saying Miami isn't capable of doing a terrible job, but I think they can learn a lot from what happened to Florida.
Yeah, no, I believe that. I watched the end of that game, and the clock management there was just atrocious.
Yeah.
You could feel it setting up for that field goal with the way that he played it out. But I was impressed with their overall speed. I thought that, better than I was expecting, and it matched Florida's, which that really shouldn't happen, actually, with where the two teams are. But let's get to it. Let's get to some of the picks here and how this actually plays itself out. I would assume you like the Canes, right? Did you pick them on Locked On?
Yeah, 31-17. So okay. I think I got USF. It's a big spread, Ethan. 17.5 points.
I don't like the spread.
I think USF will keep it within 2 touchdowns. I just think Miami has too much power and too many athletes.
I'm with you. Obviously, you know more about that side than I do. I think it'll, like I said, closer than the spread, but I do think they win the game. As far as the Dolphins go this weekend, I watched a little bit of the highlights, not the all, the all 22 or anything like that, but the highlights of New England's game. And I do think that Drake May is going to be a problem for the Dolphins. This secondary, you don't even have Storm Duck now. The situation in terms of covering out of the backfield or tight ends, we know that was not good. We saw it in the last game. I think that's something New England will exploit a little bit. Vrabel likes to use the tight end. I just don't love the vibe here. I think that you're coming into a home opener. Everything seems to be kind of falling apart. And the problem is the fans are ready to get on this team, and it's just week 2. So that whole atmosphere of, okay, it's the home opener and everybody's excited. I don't know that we're going to feel that. To me, this is
a great point.
Right? I don't think so, because the week has been so incredibly negative. Like,
aren't people looking to fly one of those banners?
The batters. Well, you mentioned GoFundMe's. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Raising money. They may do that, which also sets another tone. And I'll be out there on Sunday, and I want to see them perform better. What happened in game 1 was embarrassing. If I had the faith that Tua was just going to turn it around this week, but now, Waddle's questionable. All the things that we talked about are there. They don't have their right guard, Daniels, who they invested money in.
What about Austin Jackson didn't practice again today?
Right.
Are we sure he plays Sunday?
We're not. So they may be without 2 starting linemen. Yeah. When we talked about depth, the depth problems we talked about were secondary, offensive line. Both of those have cropped up already. The tight end this week, we assumed that we weren't going to see Darren Waller this season with the way that this was playing out. Now McDaniel has sort of tacitly not confirmed that, but he's leading that direction. You can see where that's going right now. Okay. Yeah. And it's an OBJ situation again. And it's just hard to find kind of, and then it's like, what do you take from week 1 you feel good about? Well, we wanted to see more Ollie Gordon. We didn't. Maybe they lean more into that a little bit this week. The pass rush wasn't there. I think New England wins on Sunday. Maybe I'm just calling it that way because I would like to see the opposite happen. I'd like to see this actually be a season. I know most Dolphin fans don't want it to be a season at this point, but it's more interesting for us to cover it if they're actually somewhat competitive and give us that false hope again. But I don't even think we're going to get the false hope because the Tua's reaction to the question about the turnovers coming in bunches. He's gone from, I liked when he became salty Tua for a little bit, but now it's more sort of defensive, and I felt that
way. And Omar was right, by the way, and he had the facts to back it up. He posted the stats later on. So, I mean,
and look, and Omar is not one who's been. I know people have some issues with Omar, but he hasn't been consistently all over Tua. Like he has given him benefits of the doubt in certain situations. There are some members of the media who've been anti-Tua from jump, and there are others who are pro Tua under his situation. Omar, I know, bounces around a lot, but I feel like he's been fair to him in most situations, and it was a weird response. And it just feels to me like there is this defensiveness that's starting to creep in now, and then go prove it. Go prove it. If you're the same guy that you thought you were, and you're worth the money and all the rest of this, and you want to make this thing work, then go prove it. Because I do think the issue too is going to have if he ends up somewhere else is that you have to design a system for him, and I don't know how many teams are going to do that. For a lefty quarterback who's kind of become a one-read guy, or at least seems to be, and doesn't improvise much. So I'll let you finish it. I like the Patriots. I like the Patriots in this game. What do you like?
I will go as far as to say that I think the Dolphins will be competitive this week, which will be an improvement from last week. But after seeing what we all saw, assuming the Indianapolis Colts haven't in one offseason turned themselves into a Super Bowl winning juggernaut, I'm going to assume that they're the average team that I think that they are. The Dolphins just got blown out. But I can't in good conscience pick the Dolphins to win a game until I actually see them perform well at least one time. So I'm going to, I think that they're hopefully the team is self-motivated enough to actually give forth the effort that they didn't give last week. But with that said, there are some things that I worry about from the Patriots side. Like you brought up Drake May. I'm also really worried about the pass rush since the Dolphins may have two backups on the right side, which is Tua's blind side as a left-handed quarterback. So I'm really worried about the right side of the offensive line. And it's not like the Dolphins O-line is great when everyone's healthy. And now you're in a situation where you could be down two starters. I'm genuinely concerned. I remain concerned about the defensive backfield. The pass rush was MIA last week. I think they'll do better this week, but I see the Dolphins losing a close game, probably like about a field goal, 6 points, something like that. And, they proved me wrong this week. Maybe I'll pick them for the following game, but I'm going with the Pats.
You're not picking them for the following game. They're playing in Buffalo on Thursday night. So
that's right. Yeah, definitely not. No, you're okay. Good point. Yeah.
No, you're not. You're picking them for Cancun. All right, Alex, appreciate it. Use the code 5FIVE. Get your $50 in free lineups at prizepicks.com.
See y'all later.